Good morning, everyone. Today, I and my friends are going to present a skit on the lesson A House is Not a Home. The characters are as follows: Ayushi as child, Himavi as mother, Shweta as fireman, Anchal as auntie, Garima and Sakshi as friends, Anusha, Achal, Shweta, and Sakshi as narrator.
My first year of high school felt awkward. After leaving the junior high at the head of my class with all the seniority the upper grade levels could afford me, it felt strange starting over as a freshman. The school was twice as big as my old school. And to make matters worse, my closest friends were sent to a different high school. I felt very isolated. I missed my old teachers so much that I would go back and visit them. They would encourage me to get involved in school activities so that I could meet new people. They told me that in time I would adjust and probably end up loving my new school more than I had my old one. They made me promise that when that happened, I would still come by and visit them from time to time.
One Sunday afternoon, after he had started high school, he was sitting at his home at the dining table doing his homework. It was a cold and windy fall day, and they had a fire going in their fireplace. As usual, his red tubby cat was lying on the top of all his papers. The cat was never far from him. He had rescued her when she was a kitten, and somehow she knew that he was the one responsible for giving her the good life. His mother kept stoking the fire to keep the house nice and warm. Suddenly, he smelled something strange, and then he noticed smoke pouring through the ceilings. The smoke began to fill the room so quickly that they could barely see. Groping their way to the front door, they both ran into the front yard. By the time they made their way outside, the whole roof was engulfed in flames and it was spreading quickly.
Let her go to the neighbor's house to call the fire department.
He ran to his neighbors to call the fire department. While he watched his mother run back into the house.
His mother then ran out of the house carrying a small metal box full of important documents.
She dropped the keys on the lawn and ran back into the house.
He knew what she was after. His father had died when he was young, and he was certain that she was not going to let his pictures and letters go up into flames. They were the only things that she had to remember him by. Still, he screamed at her.
Mom, no!
He was about to run after her, but he felt a large hand hold him back. It was a fireman.
You don't understand. My mother's in there. Let me go, please. It's dangerous. Don't go. They will get her.
The fireman wrapped a blanket around him and took him to a safe place. The fireman held on to him while other firefighters ran into the house. Soon after that, a fireman emerged from their house with his mom in tow. He quickly took her over and put an oxygen mask on her. The child ran over and hugged his mother. All those times he ever argued with her and hated her vanished at the thought of losing her.
worry, dear child. She is going to be okay. She inhaled just a little smoke.
And then the fireman ran back to fight the fire. He remembered watching his house burn down and thinking that there was nothing he could do about it. 5 hours later, the fire was finally out. Their house was almost completely burned down.
Where is my cat? Where is she?
But he realized that she was nowhere to be found. He was totally embarrassed, and then suddenly thought came to him that
The new school, the fire, my cat. Why God has given such a bad condition to such an innocent child?
tears rolled down into his eyes. He broke down in tears and cried and cried. The fireman wouldn't let them go back into the house. It was still too dangerous. Dead or alive, he couldn't imagine living without knowing about his cat. They piled into the car with just the clothes on their backs and a few of fireman's blankets and made their way to the grandparents' house to spend the night. The next day, Monday, he went to school. When the fire broke out, he was still wearing the dress he had worn to church that morning, but he had no shoes. He had kicked them off when he was doing his homework. They became yet another casualty of the fire, so he had to borrow some tennis shoes from his aunt. Why I couldn't stay at home instead of going to school? I have no books, no backpack, and I'm looking weird in these clothes. Mom, can't I stay at home? His mother wouldn't hear of it, but he was totally embarrassed by everything. He had his life in that backpack. The more he tried to fit in, the worse it got. He didn't want to grow up or change. He just wanted to curl up and die. He walked around the school like a zombie. Everything felt embarrassing and he was not sure that what was going to happen. All he had known from his old school, his friends, his house, and his cat had all been wiped away.
When he walked through his old house that was burned due to fire, he was shocked to see how much damage there was. Whatever hadn't burned was destroyed by the water and chemical they had used to put out the fire. Only material things not destroyed were the photo albums, document, and some other personal item that his mother had managed to rescue bravely. But his cat was gone, and his heart ached for her.
My dear boy, you came? Why are you sad? There is no time to feel sad. We need to rush and find a new house to live in.
But mom, what about our clothes?
We will go and buy your clothes also.
Okay mom, let's go.
They had to borrow money from his grandparents because there were no credit card, cash, or even any identification to able to withdraw money from the bank. Everything had gone up in the smoke. That week, the rubble that used to be their house was being cleared off. Even though they had rented an apartment nearby, he would go over to watch them clearing away the scrap, hoping that his cat was somewhere to be found. But she was gone. Still, he kept thinking about the cat.
Early morning, when he would disturb her and get out of the bed, she would tag along after him, climb up his robe, and crawl into his pocket to fall asleep. He was missing her terribly.
It always seems that bad news spreads quickly, and in his case it was same. Everyone in the high school, including the teachers, was aware of his loss. He was embarrassed as if somehow he was responsible. When he was getting ready for the gym class at his locker, people were milling around him, asking him to hurry up.
Hurry up! We are getting late for the gym. Let's go. Come on. Okay, okay, let's go. Come first.
He thought it strange. It almost seemed that they were trying to push him into the gym. He didn't know why they all were pushing him, but as soon as he entered the gym, he was shocked to see that there was a big table set up with all kind of stuff on it. They had taken up a collection and bought him school supplies, notebooks, and all kind of different clothes like jeans, tops. It was like Christmas. He was overcome by emotion. People who had never spoken to him before were coming up to him to introduce themselves. He made friends that day, and he finally breathed a sigh of relief and thought for the first time that things were going to be okay.
A month later, he was at his house watching the rebuilding of the house. But this time he was not alone. He was with two of his new friends from school. It took a fire for him to stop focusing on his feelings of insecurity and open up to all the wonderful people around him. At that time, he was sitting there watching his house being rebuilt. There, he realized that his life was doing the same thing. While they sat there planning his new bedroom, he heard someone walk up to him from behind. When he turned around to see who it was, he couldn't believe his eyes. A woman was standing there holding his cat. He leapt up and grabbed her out of the woman's arm.
My cat!
Does this belong to you?
Yes, it
Does
is my cat.
The number in her collar is not working. I tried to call this number several times, but no one picked up.
Yes, that is because our phones had been destroyed and disconnected due to the fire. But whatever, thank you very much for giving my cat back.
He held her close to him and she purred happily. His friends were hugging him, hugging the cat, and jumping around. That wonderful woman took her in and worked hard to find out whose cat it was. Somehow she knew that cat was loved and missed. As they walked there, his friends and his cat curled up in his lap. All the overwhelming feelings of loss and tragedy seemed to diminish.